It is one of the most important skills in regular football, even though it has nothing to do with normal football skills. Obviously, I'm talking about communication. But how exactly do professionals communicate on the pitch, and who should even communicate? This video will give you the answers. Communication is the easiest way to let your teammate know what you are going to do. For example, if you say their name, it's pretty likely that you will pass the ball onto them. And if you communicate it like this, they know what to do and can prepare accordingly. In this situation, prepare for receiving the pass. What's even more is that active communication prevents misunderstandings. Have you ever had a situation in which you and your teammate both went for the ball, but because no one told the other one what he's going to do, both people went straight for the ball, and because of that, they were an obstacle for each other, and no one reached the ball because the opponent got to the ball first, or you lost the ball because you were an obstacle for each other? I think this happened to everyone. If just one of these players communicated what he's going to do, this misunderstanding would be prevented and your team would be in the possession of the ball. So, who should communicate on the pitch? The answer is pretty simple. Everyone should communicate for the basic tasks, like give me the ball, pass it over to me, shoot, and stuff like that. And if you're in ball possession and your teammate gets actively pressed, you can tell them as well. The more players in your team that are actively communicating, the easier it gets for the player in ball possession to do something with the ball, and the harder it gets for the opposition to get into possession. But who should give the main calls on the pitch? This depends a lot on the position. It should definitely be a player who has a great overlook over the entire pitch. In this case, a center back or a central defensive midfielder. Also, this person should have some sort of authority in the team, because if a player gives the main calls who no one really respects, no one is going to listen to him. So that's a really important factor as well. Sometimes even the goalkeeper can deliver these calls. But now, how do professionals communicate? Most teams on the professional level communicate in English, as a lot of people from the different nations need to communicate with each other, and everyone knows English to some extent. And then there are two ways of communicating on the pitch: verbal and non-verbal communication. Let's start with verbal communication. Verbal communication is everything that has something to do with your voice. Basically, the words you use, how you talk, and how fast you talk. As verbal communication, most teams use single words to say what the teammate has to do, because you don't have enough time to talk in sentences. And if you want to communicate effectively, you should have your information earlier than your teammate. For example, if an opponent is approaching in your teammate's back, you should be the one who notices first. And as soon as you noticed, you should tell him, because this gives him more information what is going on the pitch. And because of that, he can play the ball back to you, for example. But obviously, you don't need to tell the player things that he already knows. For example, if you didn't say anything in this situation and your teammate got tackled and you lost the ball, it doesn't matter whether or not you tell him that there is an enemy on his back, because he already knows. And obviously, there are differences on how you communicate on the ball versus off the ball. On the ball, most of your calls are for the person with the ball. For example, where he should pass to, and or whether or not he should take the shot, and so on and so forth. While the other team is in ball possession, you mainly give calls about where your teammates has to move, when you're going to press, and so on. So mostly defensive actions, obviously. This is because on the ball you are focused on how to score a goal, and off the ball you're focused on how to get the ball back. But obviously there's a form of communication that doesn't include words, which is non-verbal communication. This is basically everything you don't say. So gestures or hand signs and so on. Most likely you're going to use nonverbal communication if you don't want the enemy team to know what you're up to. For example, if you want your teammate to play a crucial pass for your team, you're just showing him by giving him a sign. Nonverbal communication also includes body movements. For example, if your teammate suddenly changes directions and starts to sprint in one direction, then it's most likely that he wants to have the ball in this direction. The main advantage of nonverbal communication over verbal communication is that everyone understands it. This is because not everyone speaks the same language as you, so it's most likely that if you say things in your main language, then they won't understand. But the main disadvantage of nonverbal communication is that the other player has to look at you to know what you want to do. I'm now covering some of the most used words to communicate on the football pitch. I've linked a longer list in the comments below if you're interested on how exactly professionals communicate. But let's start out with these few. Obviously, there's the word shoot. This just describes, as the name says, that the player should take the shot. Then there are words like control or time, which means your teammate has enough time to get a control of the ball and can do freely what he wants to do on the pitch because nobody is pressing him. Also, the word turn is used a lot. This is used if your teammate has no one in the back of him, so he can safely turn around on the pitch and start bringing the ball up the pitch. And the exact difference is the word man or man on your back. This essentially means that you cannot turn around because there is someone immediately behind you. The best thing you can do in this situation is to pass the ball to where it came from. Then there is the command far and wide. This means that your team is too tight on the pitch. This is mostly used if you are in ball possession, because your team then starts to spread out, creating more space for your team to work with. Then obviously there is the word ball or pass, which just means the teammate in ball possession should pass the ball over to you. And lastly, there's the word challenge. This is used if a defender should go for the 1v1 against the winger in ball possession and try to win the ball back. All in all, good communication immensely helps your team and gives you an advantage over the opposing side. This means that you definitely should train your communication on the football pitch. If you got any value out of this video, feel free to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel. You can ask any sort of questions regarding the topic in the comments below. Have a great day. Bye.